Alrighty, there is about 2 weeks left before I head off on this trip. Lots to do. The main issue that I have at the moment is I'm not sure if the suspension that I've ordered is going to come in time. It's supposed to come in end of next week, roughly in Sydney, and then I have to get up to Sydney, either pick it up and bring it home, or they ship it to me, or they ship me boxes. I put my forks in, I ship it up to them, they put the cartridges in and then ship it back to me. That's not going to happen because we're just going to run out of time for that. I'm not keen on them just shipping it down because the couriers I've had here lately, they just lose everything. So really the only option I've got is either drive up to Sydney and pick it up, come back and install it, or take the forks up to Sydney, get them to put it in that day and then bring it back. That's the sort of the option I'm going with at the moment. That's what I've talked to them about. They said it's most likely possible, but that was a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, so it's going to be a close one. Worst case scenario, I'm going as it is, like this. So at the moment, there's a massive weather system that's come through, similar to one that went through months ago. The Great Central Road got absolutely destroyed with that weather system. This one is just a lot of rain at the moment, so anyone that's sort of heading towards Finke for that race, they're sort of copping it at the moment as well. Not sure what the tracks are going to be like, if they're going to be open, so I do need to take the fuel bladder with me, and pretty much from Goondiwindi, Thargomindah area, I'll sort of have to start carrying the bladder, mainly because I don't know which roads are going to be closed, if I have to backtrack, that sort of thing. But few things to do. I've got a list behind me up on the whiteboard, which I'll zoom in a second and show you what we have to do. A little bit to do, and once I start, I sort of need to do things in a process and then put it all back together. So I'll go through the list now, whichever side we're on, and yeah, find out what we have to do in the next 2 weeks. Okay, so the 2 weeks to go list. Tractive Pro Suspension arrives in Sydney in a week's time roughly, and then they're going to ring me and we organise a time. I can go up, take the forks up and get the cartridges installed. Hopefully, well, that's the plan anyway. New rear tyre, I do have one. It's Motor's Tractionator, which they sent me as a replacement. I'm just going to run that because I'm going to run these into the ground and then switch over to something else. And given the state of the track at the moment, I might need a little bit extra grip. Flip the front tyre. So the front tyre is pretty good. It's just starting to wear down on the leading edge. So with that, you can actually flip it and get more life out of it. And that should do for this trip. Need to do an oil change. Now, what does that mean? Pretty much the same as everything else. But one thing I do need to change, which I'll get now. I'm going to change over to the K&N filter. If we can focus, there we go. Mainly because it has the nut on the bottom. Now I'm pretty sure there's enough clearance under there, and that's what we're going to check. The reason why I want to change to this one is because I'm not going to take any crazy oil change tools with me, and I want to do a service when I get over to Perth. So I'll have that size spanner with me at least, and yeah, can change it via that. So I will be taking a spare oil filter with me as part of my luggage, and I'll just get the oil when I get over there. Yeah, so I need to get that on. I've never used one of these on this bike. I've only used the Ducati ones. So if you want the part number, KN153. Clean the air filter on the list as well, which means pulling the tank off and doing all that fun stuff, greasing it up. And I'll have to do that when I get to Perth as well. Given the state of the roads, it's probably going to be chockers by the time I get there. With that, I'm only going to be using my hand tools that are on the bike. I'm not going to use any of my little shop tools here, and then I'll work out what I need to take with me extra. Pack bags, food, water, tools, that's just a given. What I want to do though is have everything fully loaded before I take it for a test ride, and then I can fine tune the suspension and all that fun stuff. Okay, so now I have a bit of a balancing act in that the main thing I need to know is when the suspension comes in, because then I can work out a time frame to do everything else, sort of. Because I need to take the front wheel off to take the forks and all that out, that's when I'll change the tyre over on the front. I need to support the bike so I can take that off. No point in doing anything on the rear until all that suspension's here. I'll do that at the same time. I'll take the tyre off and change that. So really what I'm left with is the air filter and the service to do, throughout the week. That's no big deal. What I'll do now though is, I'm not going to bore you with that sort of thing. Everyone's got one of these bikes, has seen an oil change a million times already. I need to work out what tools I'm going to carry, what tools I need in order to do a service pretty much once I get to Perth or in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. Going to be taking just that spanner for the K&N filter. I'm not going to take a wrench like I need to get this one off, because that won't be needed because I won't have that filter. So I'll show you what tools I'm going to be starting with, and then what tools I've ended up with in order to get the job done that I need to take with me. Let's go with that. So these are the tools that I mainly carry on the bike, and little spare things that I mainly carry on the bike for pretty much every overnight trip. This is what I took to Cape York minus this toolkit. I just used the Enduro kit there. So I can get this even smaller, especially in this area here, but I'll get to that in a second. What do we have? 21-inch tube, heavy duty tube. But you're saying, oh, but the bike runs tubeless tyres. Correct, it is tubeless. That is why I have the tubeless repair kit here. But someone that has had a tubeless tyre fail, always good to carry a spare tube, especially if you're in the middle of nowhere. I can quickly put the tube in, get to a campsite, and then fix it with these plugs, which would go inside the tyre. So tyre comes off, you pull them through, they're mushroom plugs, or keep the tube in it, and we go from there. Couple spare fuses, some spare valve cores. These are empty. These are just what I keep in these bags here. So 2 tyre levers. This is what I've used to change all the tyres, this kit here. So it comes with this adapter for the levers, so you can make it as long as you want, which then lets you put the right hex in to take the brake calipers off. So that's a 6 and an 8 mil. That would be ideal if that's all we needed. But to pull the rest of the bike apart, if you were to take the crash bars off, you need an 8 mil hex, but it's not long enough to get inside the crash bars. So that's why I run with this one here. I could, get rid of that one and not need it, but it's always good to have a little spare, especially when it doesn't take up that much space. The only problem is I don't have 1.5 inch, so I need that adapter there. So these 3 items I can sort of get rid of if I had a little bit different setup there. 10 mil, 12 mil open ender. That is for chain adjustment. So that's all you need to adjust your chain essentially, once you've taken the main nut off or loosened the main nut. You say, well, hang on, but you need 2 spanners. You need to hold the 10 mil and that. Well, you can with the adjustable wrench, or even just using Leatherman on one of them and adjust it that way. Especially when you're out in the field, that's all you need. A sort of like a field stand, a little travel stand made out of 2 crutches to hold the bike up if I need to take the wheels off. A hand pump, which is all you need essentially, especially if you're just running the tube. I do have some gas canisters in here, which I need to get a few more of, and some plugs, which I'll stock up before I go. And that's essentially it. That's my kit to pretty much pull the bike apart. What extra I need to do a service, we're going to find out, but I don't think I'll need that much more. I'll need a spanner to undo the K&N filter when I get to Perth, but I'll work that out. Could possibly use that, depending on how much reach I get, but because of where the headers are, could be a bit of an issue. But that's what we're going to start with. I'll pull the bike apart now, especially the air filter. The air filter I get away with mainly just using that. That I use to pull all the stabilizer off and to get inside to take the lid off the box to actually change the filter. All my tools I use are generally in that there. All right, let's get to it. I'll let you know if anything changes. Oh, just one more thing. So you're probably wondering why I saw a T40 just sitting in the pile there. It's only because of these two here, because of the way they're angled, just to get enough leverage under to get them loose. Need that one there. The sockets that I have are too long. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change these out to probably like an M6. And then I have everything else in that little kit there that can handle these two right here. Then I won't need to carry that. All right, the idea of taking the crash bars off and everything like that, I want the tools just in case I need to. Like, you don't need to take these off, you just need to loosen these to get the tank off. That's no big deal, but just in case I need to take the crash bars off, I want to have the tools. All right, so managed to get it all fully stripped down just using those tools that I take away with me. Got the air filter out and it's absolutely filthy, so it's good that I'm doing this before the trip. You should do this before the big trip anyway, so yeah. I've ran out of cleaner, so I've got to get some cleaner for that. So I've just put a OEM paper air filter in there at the moment to stop any dust getting in there. It's going to be flying around because, yeah, it's a bit dusty in the shed sometimes. I'll give it a good clean up before I put it back together. And yeah, everything is going well so far. Haven't used any extra tools, so what you've seen before is what I've used. Only extra thing I'll need to pack is a few more cable ties, because I had to cut a few cable ties that I route the breather hoses through. So I put an extra long one on so I can just cut the cable ties and pull it all out with the tank. And then I'll just refeed them back through when I put the tank back on. So it is no more issues of trying to get it off underneath the tank. Yeah, it's all going well. This is filthy though, I'll show you this. So, we can get to focus. There we go. Captured a bit of dirt and junk. Next one, I'll just pull it out from the edge so you can see the difference. And then got a little bit of dirt through that corner there. Gonna get some different grease. That grease I think I've put in is a little bit too light. So I'll get some thicker grease for this one. But I've got another set of, so that's underneath that filter. Go on, focus. I'm going to put the other set of these in. I'll clean these, take these as the spare, and then I'll put these back in when I get to Perth. All right, let's go to the shops. Okay, so things are starting to progress along nicely. So all the tools that I showed you before, they're the ones that I've managed to use to change the air filter and get it back into this state here. Haven't put the crash bars back on yet. Haven't put the bash plate on. I'm waiting on the oil to arrive so I can do an oil change. But I did just get a phone call to say that the suspension has arrived in Sydney. So what does that mean? I need to get the front forks off, stabilize this bike somehow, because I can't put anything underneath the bike to balance it, to set the forks off. So I'll suspend it from the handlebars off the roof here somewhere, or a ladder, we'll see. Get the front forks off, get them up to Sydney where they'll put the new cartridges in, tune them, and the new rear shock as well. They're going to tune that there as well. They apparently don't need the bike for that, so that's all good. So yeah, a little bit to do, and then spend all day driving to Sydney tomorrow, and then back. A bit over a week and a half away before we go. So a little bit to do, get it all back in, change the oil, pack all the bags, take it for a test drive, and yeah. So I'm not going to film much of taking the front forks off or anything like that, because it's a matter of taking the wheel off, taking the brakes off, which you've seen 1,000 times before, undoing 4 bolts, top 2 and the bottom 2 down there, and sliding them out. So let's get to it, because I think I need to get some height off this. I need to be able to get it up enough that I can get it through the triple clamp. Haven't done it on this bike, but we'll give it a go. So I've managed to get it suspended from the handlebars. I'll just use the actual stand to take the front wheel off, which, up we go. Use that to get the front wheel off, and then I'll crank it up a bit more on the ratchets there, and then I'll get it high enough that I can pull the forks out. So yeah, 2 there, either side, and at the top. Just pry it open a little bit here, and they should wiggle out nicely. take all the plastics off and all that fun stuff, but I'll do that and show you what we end up with. There we go. One side. And there we go. Right side out, ready to go get new cartridges fitted. Off to Sydney tomorrow morning. Alrighty, so just in the car waiting at the post office for another 10 minutes or so because the oil has arrived, so we can do a service. But I'm also on my way to go drop the forks off in Sydney to get the tractive suspension put in, and then they're going to tune it there. They're tuning the rears at the moment, making it all set up, so it's all good to go. And then yeah, I'll trundle back home and put it back in the bike. So it's just going to be a couple of days of cruising up to Sydney and back in the van. Who doesn't love a van trip? So at the moment it's nice and sunny here, but the further north I get today, the more rain's supposed to kick in, and it's just going to be pouring down cold for the next 2 days. So lucky I'm in the van. It's got the bed in the back. Just going to find a spot, camping area, and yeah, do an overnight camp and drop these forks off first thing in the morning. So it should be a good day. We'll just cruise up there and see how we go.